And negative 4 squared is 16, right? And so then we'd have the square root of 20. And so what we just found is how far this 2 minus 4i is from 0, 0 on the axis. I'm going to simplify that in a second. Okay, so this would be on the complex plane where 2 minus 4i is. Does that make sense? And so what I just found is the distance from 0, 0 to that point. Okay, so what are ways we can simplify this? We could approximate it, right, using our calculator. Can somebody do that for me? What is the square root of 20 approximately? Okay, or we could also simplify it. The way we simplify square roots is we rewrite them as perfect squares like this. You agree that root 20 is 4 times 5. Do I know the square root of either of those two numbers? Yeah. Yes, I know the square root of 4 is 2, so I can pull that out. Root 5. Or, Joe, what did you say it was approximately? Okay, so that's absolute value. Or distance. Okay. So here are some distance and midpoint formulas, so you'll want to keep these handy for today. You don't have to memorize these formulas if I want you to do them. You just need to know how to use them. I hope it makes sense. So before I found the distance from 0, 0, if I want to find the distance between two complex numbers, I would first, it's like almost, if you have 2 points, you have to figure out how far are the x's away, that's like the bottom of your triangle, how far are the y's away. So we subtract the complex numbers first, then do absolute value. If we wanted to find the midpoint, just like we did in geometry, we average the 2 points together. So we add them together and divide by 2. So let's try it with these two numbers. If u is 2 minus I and v is 3 plus 5i, let's find the distance. So we're going to do u minus v. By the way, you could also do v minus u, because when you end up putting it into the formula and squaring it and taking the square root, you're going to get the same thing, just like you would with distance formula in geometry. So I need to take 2 minus I minus 3 plus 5i, and then I'm going to apply the formula for absolute value. All right, so let's simplify this. We're going to do the reals and imaginaries. What's 2 minus 3? Negative 1. And negative I minus 5i. Got to subtract both parts. What's that? Minus 6i. Okay. So then I would use the absolute value formula from the previous page. And we're going to take the square root of negative 1 squared plus negative 6 squared. So we have the square root of negative 1 squared plus negative 6 squared. Isn't that the square root of 37? Okay. This one I could not simplify. There are no perfect squares. So if I asked for you to leave it exact, this would be exact. What is that approximately? Somebody tell me. 6.082. Okay, and once again, this is what I was doing. I'm saying if I were to graph these 2 points on the complex plane, I'm finding the distance between those 2 points. Let's graph them just so you can see before we do them this point. Okay. So u I would do over 2 down 1. And then V would be over 3 up 5. Okay, so let me just give you a visual then. If I were to make this like connect those, and that was the hypotenuse of a triangle, can't you see that I went over 1 up 6? Pythagorean theorem, 1 squared plus 6 squared. And so then I just found this distance right. Alright, so let's find the midpoint between U and V then. So for this, I'm going to take U plus V and divide by 2. So, 2 minus I plus 3 plus 5I. Notice above I used parentheses around them, and here I didn't. Why not? What's that? It's not necessary. In subtraction, if I'm going to subtract a group or a whole thing, I have to distribute that subtraction sign. But in addition, we don't need to use those parentheses. You can put them in there as long as you realize they're not going to affect the problem. Alright, so let's simplify. 2 plus 3 is 5. Minus I plus 5I is plus 4I. And then if we would divide by 2, this is where it's helpful to separate them, because if I were to graph them, then I can see the real and imaginary part. This would be 5 halves, which is 2.5. And what's 4I divided by 2? 2I. And so, if you were to graph this, this midpoint should show up halfway between those other 2 points. If I went over 2.5 and up 2, do you see how it'd be right here, right in the middle of that segment? Okay. So then, let's go, well, first of all, are there questions on that part? So let's go back then to